If this is to be our end, then I would have them make such an end as to be worthy of remembrance. Hey guys, it's Lane with Tim's Nation here today to talk to you a little bit about the Death Watch that I'm taking in this week's game against DJ, and also in the GT that I'm playing in this weekend. This is it. This is the last ride of the Death Watch. I am very emotional about it. I may cry a little bit here or there. I've been working on Death Watch since 8th edition, I think. I've maybe played them some in 7th, but really got into them in 8th, 9th, played through in the 9th. I've got probably 20,000 points of Death Watch fully painted and based. And GW announced the pre-order for the Agents of the Imperium Codex this past Sunday, which means when that hits the shelves, Death Watch are no longer viable as a standalone army. Of course, there are still ways for me to use my models. Of course, on the channel here, I'm going to give a pretty good shot at that Imperial Agents Codex and see what I can do with that. I have a lot of Death Watch. I have a lot of Inquisition models. I have Assassins. I have Sisters of Battle. I have Grey Knights. I have all those things I can mix in there and use in the Agents of the Imperium book. So I will be doing that. I will try Death Watch allied into Space Marine detachments. But for today, for this week, this is the last ride of the Death Watch as a standalone Space Marine chapter. So this is the list I'm going to bring today against DJ. It is also the list I have locked in for the GT this weekend in Columbus. I'll be playing them at the Columbus Arch City GT this weekend. It starts on the 10th. I did pretty well at this GT last year. This is the one that I almost won with Death Watch. I was playing on top table round 5. Whoever I was playing against, one of us was going to be the winner, and I lost by a single point, which knocked me down to 6th place, put me out of placing on that one. So going back to see if we can do a little bit better this time, although it's going to be hard to do better than 4-1. But yeah, so this is the list. I fine-tuned it a lot. What I had last week, I thought I was going to be my final version of it, but played about 5 games with friend of the channel, Zach, and we kind of tuned it down a little bit to see if we can make it a little bit better. We'll see how it performs into the Grey Knights today. But yeah, here, let's get into the list and see how this is it. This is the final form of my Death Watch. Usually when we say that, we're just joking, but this is really the final Death Watch army that I'll be running. So this is it, guys. Here we go. All right, this is the Death Watch. This is Death Watch in a Black Spear Task Force. So the Black Spear Task Force is a Death Watch specific detachment. Gives them mission tactics. Of course, they're Space Marines, so they get Oath of Moment, but it gives them mission tactics. What those are there are 3 different abilities. I can use them once per game. Each one of them I can use once per game. I declare it in my command phase. It goes until my next command phase. Those 3 abilities are, I got the names here, guys. I finally have the names here. We've got one, which is Führer Tactics. The entire army gets sustained hits on shooting and fighting with a whole battle round. The next one is Malleus Tactics. The entire army gets lethal hits, shooting and fighting for the entire battle round. And third is Pergatus Tactics. This is where all 6s to hit become precision, both shooting and fighting. So in today's list, we have 4 characters. Now, I am bringing 2 of the Watchmasters. I didn't really run Watchmasters until recently here, and the reason is because they were 115 points, and their CP debuff was good, but not amazing because it only affected battle tactics. And I didn't really realize the fact that they do slap pretty hard in close combat. So the Watchmasters, I've got 2 Watchmasters today. The one that does not have a servo skull on it is going to be my Warlord. That's significant because the Warlord does have the 12-inch bubble where all the stratagems my opponent use will cost an extra CP. So the Watchmasters, they also give their ability, their unit that they're leading, the ability to both advance and shoot and charge, and also fall back and shoot and charge. And honestly, the fall back and shoot and charge hasn't come into play a whole lot, just because they are they're usually getting wrecked. They're kind of a missile. They go out there and do a bunch of damage and then get wrecked. But yeah, their little Vigil Spear has a little gun. It's just a 2 damage bolter with 2 shots. It's only strength 4, AP nothing. Doesn't really do a whole lot. But the close combat is where it gets really, really juicy here. So their long Vigil Spear. the Vigil Spear, it gets 6 attacks hitting on 2s. It's strength 6, AP 2, D3 damage. However, it does get lance. So that strength 6 means basically it can hit really hard, and especially if I save them for the Tome of Ectoclade's turn. They charge out there with their units of DeathWatch veterans. They can do a lot of damage and hit really hard if they're going into a Tome target, especially when it's still my sustained turn. The reason I'm taking them instead of more devastating wound shooting, like more Stern Guard squads or Terminators and Assault Cannons, the reason I'm taking them is because I found on this this Pariah Nexus terrain setups that GW has, man, it is tough to get shooting lanes. Even when you can deep strike, like I'm deep striking stuff in and uppy downing my Depth Sense, deep striking my Eradicators. Even doing all that, it is tough to get shooting lanes on. So I wanted to build some really hard-hitting close combat units. So I do have some Assault Intercessors in here, and I do have these Watchmasters. Each of them is going to lead a 5-man team of Deathwatch veterans. The Deathwatch veterans reroll 1s to hit all the time, and all their hits in the Xenos. So that just means that these Watchmasters, when they charge in, they're going to get to reroll their hits. Even so, hitting on 2s, they should get all 6. All 6 should be hits. So they should be doing pretty well there. So we got 2 of the Watchmasters. We do have 1 captain with jump pack. The captain with jump pack has my Tome of Ectoclades enhancement. This is the enhancement, of course, that really makes this army cook. It absolutely needs it. It is 40 points, so we definitely pay for it. But once per game in my command phase, I choose my oath target, then I choose a second target. And per the rules, I reroll all hits and all wounds into both those targets. And that goes until my next command phase. So it still applies in the fight phase. It still applies in my opponent's turn. So when I overwatch or in his fight phase as well. So it's definitely super strong. We've got it on the jump captain. He's going to stay back with a squad of Assault Intercessors with jump packs and hang back and stay safe until it's time to go. Then he can go out, and he's very strong leading the squad of jump intercessors. And what I often do with his captain ability, sometimes we're using Armor of Contempt on his squad just to keep him around a little bit longer. But often, because he's leading jump intercessors, they'll just jump in close to something, and I'll grenade it for free. Because using the captain ability to make any strat reduce from 1 point of CP for the cost. Really good for grenades because the jump intercessors are usually getting close. They're usually getting within 8 inches. And that just means if they go in with a captain there, throw a grenade, do impact mortals when they charge in, then punch with the captain's power fist and the power fist with the Assault Intercessors, it means that they can kill a lot of stuff. They hit pretty hard, slap pretty hard when they do that. So we got the jump captain there. And then, of course, as always, I have the Apothecary Biologist. He gives his unit lethal hits, and he has the Beacon and Jealous enhancement, which allows his unit, which is going to be the 6-man brick of Eradicators, it allows them to deep strike and also allows them to rapid ingress for free. That's it for characters. Now, next, we've got 2 battle line units. These are 2 5-man squads of the Deathwatch veterans. For 100 points, these guys can hit really hard. Each of these squads has 2 heavy Thunderhammers. These are the Deathwatch Thunderhammers. They're 2-handed, so they can't carry any guns or shields or anything, but they do slap really hard. 3 attacks hitting on 4s, strength 10, AP 2, flat 3 damage. So better than regular Thunderhammers, higher strength and higher damage. They do have devastating wounds. So when I'm re-rolling all hits and wounds going into a tome target, they can get some dev wounds through, which add up really fast when they're flat 3 damage. Each of these squads has 2 guys with frag cannons. These frag cannons, they can do a lot of work into big hordes or even like 10-man bricks, because each frag cannon gets D3 shots within 18 inches, but within rapid fire range, within 9 inches, they're going to get 2 D3 shots because they're rapid fire D3, and they have blasts. So they get into a 10-man squad. Each of these frag cannons gets 2 D3 shots plus 2. If it's a 20-man brick, each of them gets 2 D3 plus 4. That just means this little squad into the right target can put out a ton of shots. The frag cannons are strength 7, AP 1, 2 damage, and they can do a lot of work. Again, this unit always re-rolls 1s to hit, and when they're going into anything that's not Imperium or Chaos, so any kind of Xenos or Votan, they re-roll the entire hit roll. And finally, the sergeant of this squad has a Storm Shield, a Sturdy Shield, so he's got a 4-up invuln, and he has a Xenophase Blade, which is a pretty good little mini power sword kind of thing. It's got 4 attacks, strength 5, AP 2, 1 damage, so he can contribute in combat as well. Like I said, these 2 squads will be led by the Watchmasters, so they will be able to advance and shoot and charge, which means those frag cannons often get into that 9-inch rapid fire range, and those thunder hammers get in there close so they can do some fighting and contribute that way. Now, those two squads with the two Watchmasters are going to be packed into a Rhino. The Rhino has a transport capacity of 12. The DeathWatch veterans are not tacticus, so they can go in the Rhino. So we have the dedicated transport there. Really what this transport does, what the Rhino does, is keeps the DeathWatch veterans and the Watchmasters safe. He moves up turn 1 to get into good position, kind of mid-table behind some terrain. And then on the next turn, when those DeathWatch veterans and the Watchmasters come out of there, they get their 3-inch disembark, their 6-inch move. They can advance and shoot and charge. So they roll the dice. Maybe I get a 3 or 4. So they're going to 12, 13 inches out of there, and then they can still shoot and charge, which gives them a very big threat range. And now the Watchmaster also making that CP, any stratagems cost an extra CP, is really going to have an effect on DJ's Mists of Demos stratagem with the Grey Knights. It's going to have a big effect on whether or not he can do that, when now it's going to cost him 2 CP. So we got the Rhino there. Then we've got three squads of Assault Intercessors with jump packs. One of these will be led by the captain. The other 2 will have no characters attached to them. While I love the idea of sticking a chaplain in here, because the chaplain giving these guys +1 to wound is super strong, we're not going to do that. We're going to have 2 of them just without any characters attached, because they're only 80 points, and they're great for jumping out there, doing some doing actions, scoring secondaries, and they tangle really well with any kind of trash units that are getting into the middle of the table. You know, if there's any Space Marine scout squads, small squads of T3 or T4 infantry, they can wreck them pretty well, just with the combined impact of their impact mortals, a little bit of shooting, and a bunch of fighting. So I love them. At 80 points, they're a great deal. They're surprisingly durable, too. I played against Zach the other day. It took 3 castigators shooting into 1 squad to finish it off, just because the dice were definitely in my favor, but still, you know, it just took a lot of shooting to pick up this 1 5-man squad of Marines. So moving on, we have, of course, we got the Devastator Centurions. You know, I love these guys with the twin las cannon and the the Centurion missile launchers. They have a twin link las cannon each, so they hit really well. They each have a D3 shot Centurion missile launcher. It's D3 blast, strength 9, AP2, D3 damage. So it's a unique profile. That blast is super good. Anytime I run into hordes, I run into 20-man bricks of orcs or Tyranid hordes or anything, each of these guys getting D3 shots blast is huge. The ton of shots with a high strength at strength 9, a good AP, really wrecks big squads, but also with twin-length las cannons and some of those missiles can put the hurt on vehicles as well and monsters on the tougher targets, especially because the las cannons are twin-linked. Their downside is they have a 4-inch move, which is why they work well in DeathWatch, because I do have the Teleportarium strat where I can pick them up at the end of my opponent's turn because they are infantry and deep strike them anywhere during my turn, during my movement phase. So their special rules, they always reroll 1s to hit. Cool. And if your target is on an objective, they can reroll the whole hit roll. Meaning, obviously they can slap real hard. They don't need the Oath of Moment to do their work. And they're a strong Overwatch threat if they're trying to Overwatch something that is either moving onto or off of an objective. If they can see it, being able to reroll the hit roll, the whole hit roll is super strong. Next, we got the 6-man Eradicator brick. So Eradicators, they have meltas. There's 2 multi-meltas in here among the 6. You know, they do their Eradicator thing. It's a Space Marine Eradicator squad. They reroll their hits, their wounds, and their damage into vehicles and monsters. I've got some Nemesis Dreadknights I'm going to be trying to tangle with here. Of course, they're AP4. The Nemesis Dreadnoughts have that 4-up embalm, which is going to make it tough to chew through those, because a lot of times you can just spike the 4-up embalms. These guys are special in DeathWatch just because they can deep strike, have true deep strike, and can rapid ingress for free because of the enhancement on the Apothecary Biologist. And I usually bring them in on the turn in which I have sustained going off. So when these Eradicators have both sustained and lethals, it just takes a couple 6s for them to really pop off. That also means they're a strong Overwatch threat into vehicles because, again, a couple 6s, if it's on that sustained turn, that means a couple 6s turns into a lot of extra hits and wounds. So we'll be seeing them today. They're strength 9. The Nemesis Dreadnoughts are T8. So hopefully we should get a bunch of wounds onto them. It'll just depend on how many of those 4-up embalms the DJ makes. So moving on, we got our Stern Guard, guys. We got 2 10-men of the Stern Guard. The Stern Guard, they're great. Their guns are the Stern Guard bolters. They have 2 shots apiece, rapid fire 1. So when they're within 12 inches, they get 3 shots. Their bolters have devastating wounds. So that's the big thing here. And each 10-man squad has 2 heavy bolters. The heavy bolters are just like regular Space Marine heavy bolters, but they also have devastating wounds. So this is where the devastating wounds output comes in my list. So when I pop out that Tome of Ectoclades and pick a target, these 2 squads will drop in, reroll all hits and wounds into that target. I usually got sustained going on that turn too. So that means they're going to get a ton of devastating wounds. So they're rerolling the whole wound roll. And that allows them to chew through things that have high armor or invuln saves or damage reduction, because other than the heavy bolters, it's all damage 1. If you've seen the channel before, you know these guys can cook. I've only got 2 squads of them in drop pods because it's too hard to drop in 3 of them and drop in the Dev Sense and drop in the Eradicators all in one turn. I struggle to get eyes on all my targets that I want to get on them. So that's why we've got some close combat threat here with the DeathWatch veterans and the Watchmasters. We'll see how that plays out today, being that DJ can jump away with Mr. Demos, although I'm going to try to make it more expensive for him. Anyways, the Stern Guard vets, they do have a special rule, which is anytime they shoot the Oath target, they reroll 1s to wound, which can be handy when we're going into infantry, trying to fish for some 6s there. So they're also decent in combat. They're not going to be good into Grey Knights because of the 2-up armor, but each of the Stern Guard guys does get 4 attacks apiece just with their basic close combat weapon, but it's still just kind of a lot, meaning into lesser armored or lesser toughness armies, they can just get a lot of punches through. And then, of course, we've got 2 drop pods. The drop pods are kind of great in Pariah Nexus. I usually bring them in and try to bring them in very strategically, put them on an objective, put them near a table edge where they might be able to do secondaries like containment or engage in all fronts or, going behind enemy lines, that sort of thing. Because they are OC2, they can do actions. So they drop in, they can do actions. They're not a great target for my opponent unless they bring it down or something, because they just don't do anything other than score secondary. So a lot of times they drop in and just stick around for a while. And if I have them in the right place, they can do actions, they can do cleanse, they can do behind enemy lines, they can do establish locus, all that sort of thing. As long as I place them right. A lot of times my opponent can block them out, so that makes things kind of tricky. But that's why I have the jump intercessors in the list to jump up and do things there. So that is the list. Here it is, one final test for the DeathWatch. So what we're looking for today is to see if I can position my close combat units in there so they can do work when it comes time, especially for the Tome of Ectoclades, because those Watchmasters and the DeathWatch veterans, when they're rerolling all hits and wounds, both with their shooting attacks and their frag cannons, but really with close combat attacks, the Watchmasters and those heavy Thunderhammers, they really start to cook, rerolling hits and wounds. So we'll see if we can get them there. It's tricky because of Mr. Demos, but it's going to cost DJ 2 CP if he does it within 12 inches of the Watchmaster. So we're looking for that. We're looking to see if I can get eyes on my targets and shoot things. We're looking to see if the Nemesis Dread Knights fail their 4-up invulns. That's going to be really important today. So we're going to hope that happens. But follow me over to the battle report. We're going to give these DeathWatch one final shot. Send them on their way, guys. Let me know in the comments. I want you guys to know that I really appreciate all the comments I get on our DeathWatch videos. I know we've gotten a lot of support, a lot of interest in them. I appreciate it. It does my heart good. I'm always glad to chat and respond back to people on what people have been trying with them and doing with them and seeing with them. So thank you for that. I really appreciate it. But follow me over for one last battle report with the DeathWatch, guys. See you there.